Hey, everybody. Thanks for making time for us today in your schedule to join us for the webinar. I'll introduce who the speakers will be first, and then we'll get right into everything. So today we're going to talk about mastering multi-unit finance, Sage Intacct, and a tailored tech stack. I think you'll find this helpful. We've had a lot of activity in the QSR vertical and restaurants in general with changes in ERP, tech stacks, and everybody trying to get more efficient. So I think today will be valuable for you, and we appreciate your time. So I'll be speaking Andy Lester from Tablespoon, and then Chance Warner, One Data Source, will all be talking to you for today. The next slide, please. So what we're going to cover is kind of the challenges faced by multi-unit operators, the opportunities with a modern cloud infrastructure to address those challenges, integrating the right solutions with Intacct to get the most effective accounting department and financial data possible, and then getting the most out of that tailored stack overall. And we'll wrap up with some live Q&A. And just a quick get to know One Data Source. I founded One Data Source in 2002. We support about 15,000 units with our OneView BI and business process automation platform, as well as our OnePay accounts payable automation platform. And that's across 50 brands, predominantly in QSR, some casual dining, and some health and fitness as well. So I'll pass off to Andy and let Andy talk about himself and his company a bit and get into the meat of the conversation. Hey, Andy.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, just a real quick technology check. Michael, I'm not seeing the slides. Is everybody else seeing the slides, or is it just me?
I've got the slides. I see them.
You? Okay.
Yeah, it's saying that it's sharing my screen, Andy.
Okay. Okay, interesting. All right. Well, we'll keep rolling along here. So, just a quick introduction then. Again, my name is Andy Lester. I'm the founder and CEO of Tablespoon. And it is a pleasure to be here with you today. And thank you, Bruce and Chance and Michael, for the opportunity to join. So just a little bit of background about me. I'm a CPA. I have about 20 years of experience in public accounting and accounting software applications. And I've spent about the last 15 years or so really dedicated to the restaurant vertical. Have a lot of experience working with Sage Intacct, implementing the software for multi-unit restaurant groups. And then, Michael, you can go to the next slide about Tablespoon. And so just a brief introduction to Tablespoon and who we are as an organization. So we specialize in helping restaurant groups transform their accounting and financial management through a combination of really top shelf technology, as well as our experience and expertise in the unique needs of the restaurant industry. We are a Sage business partner and value-added reseller of Sage Intacct, and we are the leading Intacct reseller specializing in the restaurant industry. Next slide, please. So when we first meet with a prospective client, as part of getting to know your business, we're going to dive into all of your different financial processes and really see where you are having your biggest challenges. And really look at where Sage Intacct and moving to a more modern tech stack can help. And a lot of the restaurant groups we speak with are often facing very similar challenges, particularly if you're on an older ERP system. So a few examples of what we hear. Lack of visibility. So operators and leadership not being able to access the data and reporting that they need to make timely decisions. Outdated software. So legacy ERP systems, of course, probably one of the biggest being Great Plains that is going to be sunsetted by Microsoft here in the coming years. But these legacy ERP systems that don't integrate, that are disconnected, which leads to a lot of manual processes. So day-to-day accounting tasks like just keeping up with AP, auditing cash and sales, closing the books, issuing reporting, very time-consuming and manual. And really, folks want these to be automated. And then, of course, that leads to the accounting team being overwhelmed. So, as groups grow, new locations are opened, the pain of all of this inefficient manual process just compounds. Next slide. So how does Tablespoon help our clients overcome these challenges? So we work together with Sage Intacct and our partners with Bruce and the team at One Data Source to help restaurant groups really level up their tech stack and their accounting and finance function into future-ready restaurant finance. And really, what we do is we help our clients take advantage of a solution that shows real value, lowers costs, streamlines the whole accounting function, and really enables faster growth. Next slide. So I'll share just a couple of quick examples. We have a client that was able to cut the time to close their books by 50%. They're able to create custom reports, providing a deeper level of insight. And with this time savings, they're able to open 4 new stores and expand into a different brand without adding headcount in accounting. Next slide. Another franchisee was able to eliminate much of their manual data manipulation, saving over 36 hours per month across reconciliations, AP, and accounting processes. Next slide. And finally, a franchisee was able to streamline their accounting workflows, go paperless, and cut their close time by 25%. So by giving operators access to real-time financial dashboards, they're able to improve store profitability and scale over 134%, also without adding any staff in the accounting department. Next slide. So what do all of these examples have in common? They implemented Sage Intacct and have seen impressive results by implementing Sage Intacct and connecting into a more modern state-of-the-art tech stack. So Sage Intacct, for those of you who may not be familiar with the product, it is a modern native cloud accounting solution. It has open APIs offering seamless integrations with One Data Source, both products, OneView and OnePay. We'll obviously be talking about that in a moment. Built on an AI-powered dimensional general ledger, offering a lot of automation in transactional accounting, bank reconciliations, and streamlining the close process. And next slide. Sage Intacct is a native cloud solution. So unlike other accounting software, Intacct has been cloud-based since its original launch over 20 years ago. And being in the cloud means that anyone in the organization can have access to the information they need when they need it. So, a district manager can review her P&Ls from the field while the CFO is using Sage Intacct's financial dashboards for a board presentation. And at the core of Sage Intacct is a powerful, flexible general ledger supercharged with AI to help automate accounting transactions. So all of those core features that you need to manage your business, from AP, auditing sales, bank reconciliations, and sophisticated reporting, are part of the core product. But the ease of use of Sage Intacct really helps drive a lot of that time savings as well, making the software a great solution for growing restaurant groups. Next slide. So Sage Intacct has over 400 marketplace partners who offer rigorously tested and certified connectors to their solutions. And these direct connections eliminate manual data entry and the need to rely on Excel for importing and exporting data that needs to move between systems. So there's a lot of marketplace partners that are, restaurant specific. and obviously the one pay and one view solutions, which we'll be talking about today. There are also a lot of marketplace partners that are more, what we would call horizontal solutions that provide automation for things like, corporate credit card use, expense management, budgeting and forecasting, all the different components that go into really a modern financial tech stack for your organization. And I think the key point here is that the philosophy behind this tech stack and this approach to building a modern financial tech stack is really that best-in-class suite of seamlessly integrated solutions. So, some software vendors have a very different philosophy and, try to offer this vision of like an all-in-one restaurant accounting suite where basically one vendor provides everything you might ever need. And the problem with that approach, in my view, is that with a suite, you're locked into just that vendor for your entire tech stack. So you're really dependent on that vendor, that one vendor, to be able to meet all of your needs. So we have found tremendous success working with a number of restaurant groups across a lot of different brands who are growing that really need that flexibility. So being able to, plug in the systems through these seamless integrations that are going to best meet your needs. So with that, I believe, Chance, I'm turning it over to you.
Yes, thanks, Andy. So I want to touch on something that you just mentioned real quick because we deal with it a lot, I know, in customers that we've shared together and when we work with franchisees and even providers of outsourced accounting services, is that idea of, the pie and sky idea of having a single vendor that can do everything. I think that really gets into kind of the old saying of jack of all trades, master of none. And it's certainly appealing, but to your point, it's exactly right. In the franchise restaurant space, especially, and with operators of multiple brands, they can often be, hamstrung or shut off to some access to other systems based off the controls that the brand themselves will implement, or the ability to integrate with those required systems. Payroll, we see this a lot. Polling resources and BI tools, we see this a lot. So this is really the niche that One Data Source we've carved out for ourselves, is kind of coming in with specialized solutions that help bridge the gaps when a single solution can't cover everything that a franchisee is looking for. And that's, as we've learned, a beautiful fit also with Sage Intacct, which is so well suited for operators. And when supported by a team like yours at Tablespoon that understands the industry, it makes for a really, really powerful tech stack. So that's what this slide is really kind of touching on, is focusing in a little bit more on the specifics and how not only our applications interact with our customers' teams and their accounting system, as well as, outside inputs. On the AP side, of course, that being vendors and suppliers. On the OneView side, that being a host of data sources from point of sale and back of house for sales, labor, and inventory, on into banks, payroll systems, earned wage access providers. The list kind of goes on forever in some cases. So what we're going to do next is we're going to show a rather quick demo of our OneView solution and its responsibilities for integrating sales data. That's one of the key features here. So pulling in that data from point of sale, getting it into Intacct automatically to feed that general ledger and all the additional automations that are available there. But we're also going to talk about the accounts payable side. And we'll start with AP because it's a little bit more straightforward and simple. Then we'll move over into OneView, and you'll see both sides of the integration in these demonstrations. You'll see within the OneView and OnePay applications, then the flip side or the result and the additional processes within Intacct. So this will go rather quickly. We want to make sure we leave plenty of time for questions at the end. We definitely encourage everybody to reach out to us at the end if you are interested in a more in-depth and one-on-one demonstration of any of these applications, or just curious to learn more about what other operators are doing to achieve these best-in-class processes. So with that, we'll go ahead and start the videos of the demos, and then we'll open it up for questions, I believe.
So anytime you have a new vendor, you will want to add your vendor directly in Intacct, and that vendor data will then sync over to OnePay. From your main screen in Intacct, you'll come to this applications drop down, navigate to accounts payable, and select vendors. Once you're ready to add your new vendor, click add in the top right hand corner of Intacct, and here's where you will enter your vendor information. So we'll go ahead and enter our vendor name, and then we'll want to make sure that we add any remit to information or contact information that we have. From here, you can then go in and add any additional information such as payment methods, preferred pay types. Once you've entered all of your vendor information, you'll come here to the top right and click save. Once you save this vendor, that is going to trigger the data to send over to OnePay. When you're logged into OnePay, to see if the vendor was synced successfully, if you come into maintenance vendors, you'll have your full vendor list in OnePay. And if I sort by my created date, for example, I'm going to get most recent up here at the top, and there's our vendor that we just created in Intacct. It's automatically synced over to OnePay. You'll see our name, our display name here in OnePay matches the name that was entered into Intacct. And then here on the right-hand side, you'll have your vendor number, and that relates to your Intacct vendor number. So as far as syncing invoice data from OnePay into Intacct, you'll start with your invoice that is in an initial to-do status. As the AP processor, you will code your invoice and make sure you have all the relevant data that is needed. And then from here, for this scenario, I want to be able to approve this invoice myself instead of sending it through the workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and set my invoice to waiting approval status. At that point in time, we're doing your validation to make sure all data points are filled in that are required. I am now the approver, so I will come here to waiting approval and approve the invoice. That will then trigger the data to go ahead and be queued to send over to Intacct. If I go back over to my invoice, so here's the invoice I just approved, you'll see it's already synced over to Intacct. So in my invoice assignment and metadata tab, I've got an export status of success. ERP worker tells us it went through integration, and then I have the export date and time as well. So now if I come back over into Intacct, I'll go to accounts payable, bills, and you'll now have the invoice that was just synced from OnePay. So if I come in here and view this invoice, I'll have all of the information. I'll also have the attachment for the invoice that was processed as well.
All right, well, hello, this is Andy Lester from Tablespoon, and I'm going to take us through a few examples of how the integration between both OnePay and OneView work on the Sage Intacct side. So on the screen here, I'm in a demo environment of Sage Intacct. This is a brand specific demo that we have developed based on the Pizza Hut brand. But all the functionality I'm going to talk about is general. It'll apply to any of the brands or concepts that you all might operate. And I'm going to start by talking about the integration with OnePay first on the AP side. So I'm going to navigate over to look at some bills. And once that integration is connected between OnePay and Sage Intacct, the transfer of information between the two systems is fully automated and seamless. So when a bill is processed on the OnePay side, I'll use an example here. Through this integration, the bill will post automatically in Sage Intacct, post directly through into your general ledger, and it'll look something very much like this, where you can see, the vendor, the invoice date, all of the coding. So, expense account, which store, etc. So all of this entry on the accounting side is fully automated. Then we also have from the integration, again, on the Sage Intacct side, we have the invoice image itself comes over as an attachment. So we can click this little paperclip and we get a side-by-side view where we can actually see the source invoice itself right here in Sage Intacct. And then there's also a link right here in this custom field where if we click this link, I can go right back to this invoice on the OnePay side. So this is an example of how the systems are connected and driving the automation for AP.
So dashboards, go into my dashboards folder. I've got a couple examples here, and these are really the common ones that all brands will have. So if I go into my Pizza Hut dashboard, I have some key reports visualized that I've elected. So this is something that's always custom for each individual client. They can choose whichever reports they'd like to have here. Some clients like to have some more loss prevention metrics in this middle section. The sales trends are generally always the same across the top, as well as the net sales chart down at the bottom. but some people will have voice of customer data. Some would elect to have labor data, like a day part labor yield heat map, for example, down here, but it's entirely up to the customer. But these operate pretty easily. You can choose to show historical growth rather than the comparative that it defaults to. Each of these charts you can change on the fly. So I could change this to a pie chart, for example, if I wanted to. You can also toggle these KPIs on and off. So if I wanted to remove deletions after from this chart and just get a better visibility of the labor hour variance, I just toggle that off. And now I'm looking at what I want to see. So I want to see a daily flash report, let's say, for my Pizza Hut operations. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go down to my daily flash. You can also use the search functionality. And when you type anything in here, it'll both search the header or the name of the individual reports, as well as any details of the description for that report. So let's look at our daily flash. While I run this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the input controls over here, because this is, again, something that can be configured for each individual report based off what you as the customer want to see or be able to control within a given report. So generally, you're always going to have a date range that you could select. Right now, I'm just picking individual days. We could have whole weeks listed in here, periods, years, whatever. You could select individual or multiple days to run through ad hoc if you'd like. The organizational level and the organizational group with which I'm viewing the data is basically what this means is everything, these levels that I'm looking at. And then I've got a pick list of my stores. So even within that grouping and that level, if I wanted to just see one of these stores, I could select that store, run the report, and it's just giving me the same data for that individual store. You can run it for all stores. You can remove a couple from that list, so on. Same here, we're looking at comparative figures, but you can toggle to show historical sales growth. You can include delivery charges or remove delivery charges. You can pull in remodels or exclude remodels, and then you can group this information as well. Right now, it's grouping it by area. So if we just kind of walk through this report and kind of describe what we're looking at, it's pretty straightforward. But we've got our sales numbers across the day, across the top for day, week to date, period to date, year to date, and rolling 13. Let me move these input controls out of the way. And then we've got the same categorizations, but for transactions. And I'm showing it for these two stores. And then down at the bottom, I've elected to have average check data as well. And then as I tab through each of these pages, it's going to drill into each of those areas. So now I'm looking at a single area and the 3 stores that roll up to that area. For the date range I selected, I'm also including some weather data for context. So this year versus last year, same sales trends. And then here's a good example of that additional data that we're pulling in as well. So we've got some cancels, average tickets, some transaction counts. We've got some driver information as well, some labor yield. But this is a section of this report that's often always customized for each individual client based off what they would like to see here. A couple other things worth mentioning on the functionality within the application is all of the reports and dashboards in OneView can be downloaded. They can be downloaded in any of these file formats. We can also configure the way in which that Excel file, for example, would download. So what I mean by that is it could be paginated to where each page would break out as a tab in that Excel sheet to show the details at the company level, the area level, store level, however we have it set up. You can also schedule all reports from the application. The easiest way is you can just come in here, right click, and then I can create a schedule to have any of these reports distributed to myself or anyone across my organization on a regular basis. Next, we're going to jump into more of the process automations for OneView, things that support the home office. So we'll start with the GL export. So this is moving sales data into the accounting system. And for Intacct, we have an API integration, which we can leverage. So I'll quickly show what a GL export essentially looks like so you can see the visualization of the data that's being moved to Intacct. Go to the accounting folder, and within this folder, I can access my GL export. I'm gonna select this. Now it's going to leave it blank, but I've got my input controls over here on the left. So let's say that I need to import the data for yesterday. I've got yesterday already selected, and I'm just going to pick a handful of stores to show. I want to apply, and here's the visualization of the data that's being pushed to Intacct through that API. Now you can show headers as well if you want to have the actual header information show. These can always be downloaded in these file formats as well. So if you just need to pull something down to manually upload it somewhere, you can. But the way the Intacct integration works is we would work with our customers during the implementation process to define what information they need moving to their accounting system and on what schedule or frequency they want that to happen. Best practice is generally once a day. So we would define a particular time of day, call it 11 a.m. local time. So for me, that's Eastern Standard Time. Every day at 11, there would be an automated exchange between OneView and Intacct of this GL export file right here. So my sales journal entries are being posted for me daily automatically. There's nothing that I have to do. That's how the GL export integration with Intacct works for OneView. It's very straightforward. It's very simple.
Now, the other integration is on the OneView side for daily sales information. And so we have an integration connected. This is actually a live integration into this demo environment between Sage Intacct and OneView. And this is pulling in daily sales information for a group of Pizza Hut stores. And so this is an example of a dashboard that is just, helpful for us to see the data, how this is working. But this is actually, as of the day I'm recording this, this is actually for last week. And we can see the sales coming in every day, and how on the Sage Intacct side, you can customize Sage Intacct to break out the sales information in a very granular way and based on the unique, attributes or accounts or categories for your brand, whatever brand you operate. Again, this is just an example. So you can see here we have the sales by category broken down into, for gross sales. We have our promotions by category, and all of this organization, again, in Sage Intacct, we can customize this so we can design the system to meet all of your brand reporting requirements as well as all of your operational reporting requirements. From this view where this is looking at just a single store, I can drill down into any one of these days and get into the details of the sales. And now I'm actually looking at the daily sales entry for this store for this day. So this is a daily flow, daily integration. And you can see how granular this is and how this is broken down. And this is all based on the integration between OneView, the way that OneView is capturing all of this data, and then mapping this over for that seamless push into Intacct to automate all the sales. And then finally, we do have in the Sage Intacct side, we support what Intacct calls statistical accounts. And these statistical accounts will capture operational data from the POS. So, some sales metrics like, gross product sales by guest check. We have our number of guest checks populating through. This is a pretty simple example. Here's an example of some of the statistical accounts that we can configure. So I shared the guest checks, but as you can see here from this list, hours, labor information, hours broken down by different job categories, labor dollars, through different sales metrics. So there's a lot you can do here with these statistical accounts that help drive reporting and dashboard capabilities in Sage Intacct. So again, in terms of the integration, the value here is by seamlessly connecting OneView and Sage Intacct, that daily sales information is coming over automatically. It's reducing time for the accounting department every day, having to manually, edit, review, upload, export, download, all of the normal kind of manual tasks that might be occurring today. Automating all that work, seamlessly connecting the systems, and ultimately streamlining this portion of the accounting.
Okay, so we've moved through everything there pretty well and want to take the time to answer some questions. I've got a few here, and if anybody wants to add more questions, please feel free. We'll start with an easy one for you, Andy. How fast with the Intacct implementation are companies normally closing periods and distributing P&Ls?
So great question. Once you're fully live, and it's really the automation and the workflows that drive this. We have clients that can close the books and get their prelims out in 3 to 4 days, potentially after period end.
Yeah, that's really quick and big time savings there. With another question, with the implementations and integrations, how do your teams approach easing the burden on clients? So what's the lift for the client versus one data source or Intact Tablespoon?
So one of the benefits, and I talked about this earlier in terms of the Intacct marketplace, these integrations are already developed. So the lift is, in terms of the integration itself, the lift is pretty minimal. On the Sage Intacct side, it's literally a matter of creating a special type of user for the API and, entering in a credential, a password authentication. And that's pretty much all that has to happen in terms of enabling the integration on the Intacct side. There's definitely some kind of backend configuration that has to happen first so that, Intacct can receive the data. With accounts payable, for example, obviously we have to have your vendor information, chart of accounts, things like that. But we're, of course, when we're newly implementing Intacct for a client, we're doing all of that anyway because we're going to be setting up Sage Intacct, designing your chart of accounts with you, helping customize the system to your requirements. So all of that, pre-work is basically part of a standard implementation of Intacct anyway. So the lift actually, in terms of enabling the integration, is pretty nominal, at least on the Intacct side. So I don't know, Chance, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I mean, it's to your point, I think it's important to categorize the two ways that integration can work here when both systems are already live, meaning either one pay and Intacct, one view and Intacct, or all three of them. I mean, I think when we've had joint customers that we've turned on these integrations for, it happens in like 2 hours, really. I mean, it's quite quick. On the one data source side for implementing our applications, like Tablespoon, we try and make it as light a lift on our customers as possible. And what that typically looks like is some front end work on our customer, really to provide us the data that we need to build out the database and the base functionality of each application. Fortunately, most of this data is exported straight from the accounting system and provided to us just in a spreadsheet. So it's a minimal effort. From there, the bulk of the work is on our teams, and really the rest of the client's involvement is collaboration for training and additional process improvements, modifications to workflows and reports, that sort of thing. But those pieces can even be done after the initial go live. So we typically get people live in 30 to 45 days, depending on the complexity of the project.
Yeah, and just to add to that, on the Sage Intacct side for the implementation process generally, so one of the things that we have developed are we've got several brands that we've developed brand specific editions around. So in the video we saw that was a Pizza Hut branded edition of Sage Intacct that really has some pre-configuration for things like chart of accounts, some of the reportings, P&L layouts, side-by-side P&Ls, just kind of those standard things that, pretty much every QSR group is going to need. We've pre-configured a lot of that. And what that enables is a faster implementation. So, depending on the requirements, we can actually get fully implemented as fast as 30 days. For larger and more complex organizations that need more customization, 90 to 120 days is pretty typical for Sage Intacct. But much like what Chance said, our priority and focus is making this process as smooth as possible. We've done this many, many times, so we really try to make the lift on our clients as minimal as we can.
Great, thanks, Andy and Chance. Another question here. Do you have a couple examples of how staffing models can work with the right tech stack in place, i.e. one AP manager or one accountant can handle X amount of stores with the right tech stack? So really a staffing matrix of what we've seen needed on a accountant to store ratio. Chance, you want to share some observations on that and then let Andy add commentary?
Sure. So we've definitely seen some best practices, and we like to think of things in terms of store count as well. So that's nice. The kind of the best in class that we've seen is on the AP side, really with strong automation. One person can relatively easily support 100 stores. Now, that's not to say if you have 100 stores, you only want one AP person. You want a buffer if that person's on vacation or, heaven forbid, there's some unexpected turnover. So there's a difference or attention that needs to be paid for like your level of comfort and what's actually achievable. And we recommend that as well. On the typical staff accountant side, so the processes of various reconciliations, managing the general ledger, all that kind of thing, best in class we've seen is about one staff accountant every 76 stores. But again, that's really pushing the envelope for a very, very, very efficient operator. Everybody's going to have their comfort threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to share some experience on what you've seen there?
yeah, I would echo that, and I think it, you know, kind of seeing similar ratios, you know, at a sort of broader level. I'm thinking of one of our clients that has about 120 stores, and they have, I believe, 4 people in their accounting department in total, so including the controller. And that's pretty darn efficient, you know, for 120 stores. Um, we've also seen many examples of um, clients as they're growing and scaling, being able to really grow their store count without having to add headcount in accounting. And that's a big part of the value proposition here as well. So it's, you know, as you're looking at how to design your staffing model, you know, with growth in mind. I mean, one of our other clients doubled in size. They went from, I think, about 45 stores to about 95 over the course of a year. And they did not add any headcount in accounting. So, and that's driven by being able to leverage this modern tech stack and the automations, you know, that lead to those results. So, you know, it's a pretty big value proposition in terms of being able to really streamline the headcount. And I think one last comment I'll offer on this is sometimes I get asked about, you know, how does outsourcing factor into all of this? And it's been interesting because as the technology has evolved and frankly become, you know, more widely available. I mean, these examples are that I just shared are clients that have implemented these solutions internally. They have internal accounting departments. You know, the client I shared earlier that has a 4-person accounting department. I mean, they're running that accounting department at a lower cost than any outsourcer could possibly, you know, match. So the kind of the value proposition of outsourcing has changed as this technology has advanced, and you know the opportunity to reduce the G&A cost or really scale the G&A cost across a bigger store count has started to shift, and you know outsourcing isn't necessarily the cost driver or cost savings driver that it once was.
Yeah. If I may add one more thing to that, because you kind of give me another good idea that we see is another way to think about the question is, you know, what's my organization's profile? That could be, you know, how many stores do I have? Or even more specifically, what kind of hats do all of my current team members wear? So we'll see with an operator of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 stores, you know, the controller servicing a lot of payroll functions, or some staff accountants are servicing as payroll folks as well. And so the scalability can translate to taking certain workloads off of them to focus on other processes where there's less automation available, or automation that does exist doesn't quite do as much. So that's another way to think about it too for operators of certain sizes.
Good. That's a good segue into the last question there as well. So the last question, if you're leveraging multiple systems, what are the 2 or 3 primary ways franchisees extract maximum value? So not sure exactly what system's referring to. So I'll start with just a couple of comments, making some assumptions, and then, you know, Chance, if you and Andy can add some color. But multiple systems, let's talk about multiple brands, and then multiple systems, perhaps, you know, back of house systems where, you know, even some brands have multiple back of house vendors. And it's kind of what Andy and Chance were just talking about. What the tech stack that we've been talking about today does is it gives you the foundation for scale by creating standardization. And when I say standardization, starting with the data. So if there are multiple systems, let's just assume we're talking about POS and back of house, maybe even within the same, brands, standardizing that data to where to the user, whether it's operations or accounting functions, finance functions, to where that data all looks the same and there doesn't need to be an interpretation of, well, which system did this data come from? That's what really sets up the efficiencies in kind of building that process. And then also standardizing processes. So if you have multiple brands, you have the same workflow as far as how invoices get submitted, how they get approved, and how they flow all the way through the invoice to pay process. And that certainly will be the case as well within the actual accounting team functions. Andy, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great observation, because that is one of the pain points that we see a lot. Whether you're operating one brand that might have, multiple systems, or particularly when there are multiple brands, multiple concepts, having the ability to standardize and structure the data is a key prerequisite to automation. And this is where we see a lot of groups struggle is, maybe there's this one system out there that, is legacy, it's very outdated, and there's no APIs and et cetera. And that's a big part of the value, of being able to structure and standardize that data first. So that's really key.
Yeah, absolutely. Chance, any other comments on that one?
No, I think you guys have covered it. I mean, I can try and provide one other example, because I was actually on a call earlier today and yesterday with a couple of franchisees that operate multiple brands, and the way that they've approached it. Both these organizations are slightly larger. One's around 75 stores, the other one's slightly over 100. Is they have responsibilities within their internal team assigned by brand. Both cases, these brands do not share point of sale or back of house systems. And while they have essentially the same results that they're looking for in these reports that they're producing and these processes that they're running, the way in which they have to be done is slightly, or in some cases, significantly different from one brand to the next. And that causes some complexity when trying to scale, whether even focusing just on one brand or across the organization. And so that's, I know, what we've looked to do in our partnership and individually is provide that standardization for those types of scenarios, to where the source of the data almost becomes irrelevant, and it's really the result that we're driving more quickly.
Great. Well, that's all the questions that have been submitted. Andy, if you got anything in closing, or Chance that you'd like to say, but if not, really want to appreciate everyone who made time to join us today. Hope you found some value in the 45 minutes, and we'd love to hear from you, whether it's just asking for some domain expertise or experiences that we have, or if we can support you in decisions for your business. That's great too. So Andy, Chance, any final comments?
Just want to echo that. Thank you for the time this afternoon. Appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts and perspective. My contact information is here on the slide. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'm happy to talk through any of the topics we discussed today, answer any questions, et cetera. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and everybody here that participated. Michael, Andy, Bruce. If we went through a lot of information really quickly, so truly we encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions or want to dive into anything deeper. That includes the demos, because that was an especially brief demonstration. There's a lot more we can go into if you're interested. But thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll see you all. Bye.
Bye, everyone.